The sand media filter is used a lot. They're a great filter. If you don't understand a sand media filter, there's actually a sand inside the sand media filter. It's called silica sand. I don't use a lot of them because it's my theory, my personal theory is I have a hard time filtering sand with sand. And as most growers don't get out there and check their systems, have they contaminated, have they flushed their sand out of there, have they checked it? They're great filters. There's a lot of great success with them, but I just wanted to kind of touch base a little bit on them. There's probably more educated people on the sand filter in this room that can help you out with that. But I do have a few of them out there. Like I said, they're good filters. Some of the key components with the drip is the chemigation check valve. The chemigation check valve is put pretty much right as you're going into the drip irrigation system. That's where you need to inject your chemicals. I'm going to go off the wall here and say most people don't. They inject downstream your filter, but I got to be careful. But you're supposed to use this. It has a low pressure drain inside of it, and to protect if your system shuts off, your flow going to the system shuts off, it has a low pressure drain where actually your fertilizer or chemicals will drain out into a holding tank. Dumper waste valves. We put these in right before going into the drip irrigation system, right before the filter. The purpose of the valve is when you go and you crank your wells up pre-season, everything's settled in, there's rust, there's trash in there. Instead of having to send that right to your filter and create a problem in your filtration system, I kind of like to dump them out on the ground a little bit until they clear up and send it into your drip system, filter system. Pressure gauges, pressure recorders. The most simple way to monitor a drip system. We try to put as many gauges as we can on the filter station so that you can drive up to your pickup. If your pressures are sitting where they were yesterday, you're probably just fine. Everything seems to be fine. The good thing about the drip system, though, you can look at if they have high pressure when you pull up there, your valves probably aren't open. Your controller may not be on. There is a problem, but that's usually what it is. Low pressure, solenoid stuck open, your valves, there's too many valves open. That gives you an indication there is another problem, or you may have a pipeline break. If you have increased pressure over time, you come here, Monday it's 20 psi, 2 weeks from that it's 22 psi, and so on and so on. You may be seeing a slight plugging problem. That's something you really need to take into consideration. When you put in a new system, I recommend writing on your controller, writing somewhere you won't lose it, what your pressures were during that beginning first week of running that system. Make sure you know what your flow was, make sure you know what your pressures were. Pressure recorders are another way to monitor your drip systems. They actually look like an EKG. They're monitoring 24 hours on a piece of paper with a red ink line. A lot of people aren't there at midnight, 3 in the morning to look at their drip system. They don't know what's going on. So if you have too many valves staying open in the middle of the night, how are you to know it unless when it's too late and you see a variance in your crop? That's why pressure recorders are kind of becoming more and more of a necessary item to be able to see really what the drip system is doing. Flow meters, they aren't mandatory, but they are becoming a big issue with the drip. I think sometimes I like them, sometimes I hate them, because this farmer may say I have 300 gallons, we put it in, he's got 250, he's mad at me. And that's what the flow meter says. So but there's mechanical type, there's digital type, and it's, like I said, it's also a good operation tool for monitoring your SDI system. Valves, there's pressure reliefs, pressure sustaining, pressure reducing, back flush valves, and flush valves. We'll kind of run through each one of them. Pressure relief is a protected system. There's spring-loaded type, there's private regulated type. The spring-loaded type comes from the manufacturer set what you specified it at. Pilot regulated type, you can actually adjust in the field to what you want to set it at. On the system that we have a booster pump on, we'll actually put a pressure relief in front of the booster pump and after the booster pump to protect both sides of the system. A pressure sustaining valve is used on I know the disc filters, most of the time I see them on a lot of the sand media filters. It's used only during the back flushing of the valves. What it does is it actually slows the flow of the water down to increase the pressure on the filter station so you get a more proper flush. This is also pilot regulated, can be adjusted to whatever pressure you need to make sure you ensure a good flush on your system. During normal operation, it's fully open. There's a small amount of pressure loss as long as the valve sized correctly across the filter. I have seen in some cases where some people actually use their sustainment valve to keep a constant 40 to 45 pounds of pressure on their drip system, no matter what. Just kind of helps regulate your wells, helps pump off things like that. Pressure reducing valves, they control the pressure downstream of the valve, usually on your tank. That's where if you're wanting to put 12 PSI on your zones, that's all the water you want going to it. You've got 30 upstream of the valve, they're pilot regulated and can be set and fitted. If you're watering multiple zones and you've got your water in one zone close to your filter station, 3, 4, 5,000 feet away from their filter station, well, the water's going to follow the path of least resistance. So you can actually use these to regulate so that each zone is getting the same amount of water delivered to each zone. Also helps to not exceed the maximum operating pressure of your tank. It protects you, it helps protect your tank. Backflush valves, I've seen all kinds of designs done. You can actually build a filter station where they're not really a sand media, I guess you could, where you're doing manual backflushing. But I know you're not going to be out there, you're turning this valve on, this one off, to flow the water backwards and back and forth. You're not going to be there enough to make sure that your system flushes properly. So recommended to an automated backflush of valves. This can flush off of periodic pressure and or pressure differential, depending on how you set it up, how often you set it up. They're a great tool. They're a three-way valve. Kind of thing I didn't touch on, the backflush valve, when flushing any one of the systems, whether it's sand media or disc, it actually pushes clean water. So three-way valve pushes clean waters back through the filter, pushes the trash out, so you're always flushing with clean water. Most any of the components out there, you can put automatic valves on anything out there for the back flushing purpose. Flush valves, you'll hear, you can put header line flush valves out there. So we do and install the system, trash gets in there, dirt, the PVC that we put in the drip system, or when we're drilling the holes in there, actually falls in. You can put a flush valve there. A lot of the companies don't. We actually, some systems we do, some systems we don't. I think it's actually coming up, if I'm correct, one of the mandatory things we have to do for the EQ program. But what we usually do is take off narrow leak blower lines and clean them out. Now on your bottom end, the way the drip tape's tied in, you've got a header line and you've got a flush line. The flush line, header line flush line is actually tied, if you think about it, as zones like a radiator system. It's manifolded together so it becomes a pressured system. We need flush lines on the bottom end so that you can flush your system. Recommend highly, if you ever put a drip system in, flush it. Go by and check it. Not at the beginning of the year and end of the year, throughout the growing season. So many people never go down there to see if that flush valve's even been opened, unless they run over one. That's what usually happens. Clean your drip systems out, flush them. That is very key to making that drip system last a long time. We do a dual split flush on most of our systems, so that means there's 2 flush valves per flush line. If you went down there and just opened one flush valve, you drop your pressure down so low, you can't get as little flush through the drip system. So we flush half a zone at a time and kind of go back and forth and try to help move that sedimentation, if there's any, down through the system and get it flushed out. And definitely a requirement for system